Give me the hot sauce, Bill Buck. Give me the hot sauce. What are you doing, Dragons? Did you not get the memo? Derrick Rose can go upstairs.
Well, we hope you're finding a way to stay cool out there. Record heat in Chicagoland these days, and it has just been like a sauna outside. Walking in my car today, man, I started sweating just taking a few steps. Stacey joins us from his home, and Tim Kelley is not with us today because Stacey, it's 100 degrees in Chicago, so Tim decides he's going to fly to Fort Myers. What guy is going to go to Florida to find some warmer summer weather? That's our guy Tim, right?
The only guy that will leave 100-degree heat to go into 105-degree heat. Then he says his internet's not working. And I told you, when you don't feed the squirrels nuts and you ask them to run on the treadmill to power up your electricity and your internet, and you don't feed them, they go on strike. Hell no, we won't go.
I think Tim might have forgot to pay his Xfinity bill because he's complaining about internet, and he's saying, I've been on the phone for 2 hours, and they're probably like, sir, we need you to give us your credit card to reactivate your service.
Yeah, he hadn't been down there in a while, so I would probably assume that they probably turned it off.
Yeah, that's our guy, Tim, the only guy who leaves 100 degrees for 105. So
yeah,
football season is almost here. Baseball is heading into the stretch run, and we've got a very special guest coming up. This is episode 143 of Gimme the Hot Sauce. We've got the Hall of Famer, Artis Gilmore, the A-Train, is going to join us in a few minutes. Boy, what a career he had. I remember watching him playing at Jacksonville. They played UCLA for the national championship back in the early 70s, back when Stacey was a little boy, or actually in diapers probably. But Three? Okay.
3 years old.
Yeah, but that game got so much hype, Stacey, because you had Artis Gilmore, and then their power forward was Pembroke Burrows III, who was another 7-footer, and people had never seen anything like it. This was tiny Jacksonville. They had these wild green uniforms, and it took the nation by storm. They took on mighty John Wooden in UCLA.
Yeah, and Artis with the big afro.
Yeah,
just a big imposing figure. Dominant. I mean, he's been dominant since he came, since high school. He was a dominant player. And then that carried over to college. And again, gentle giant, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, former Bull, one of the great Bulls players of all time. His number really should be up in the rafters here in Chicago as well, as a retired Hall of Famer. And he put some really good work here in Chicago after coming from the ABA.
Yeah, so we'll talk to Artis in just a few minutes. I'm sure he's got lots of stories about his days at Jacksonville and the ABA, and then, of course, playing at the old Chicago Stadium with the Bulls. Want to start out with something that's really been taken on a life of its own in social media, this ridiculous feud between Lonzo Ball and Stephen A. Smith. Now, it started out with Stephen A. Smith, I believe, on a show on Tuesday, mentioned that he had heard through sources that Lonzo was kind of struggling with his knee rehab. He was even having troubles, pushing off a chair to stand up. So Lonzo playfully put a chair by the pool and was just on one leg. His surgically repaired left knee was bouncing up and down, just playfully saying to Stephen A., I don't know who your sources are. And he's even mentioned in the short clip that he likes Stephen A. and, there's no problems. You just better get some better sources. Then Stephen A. went on his First Take show the next day and kind of blasted Lonzo, saying, well, you're not healthy. What does that prove? Then he went on his other show, I don't know if it was podcast or his radio show, and said, well, my sources are your doctors, so don't be questioning me. And Stacey, I know that, it's kind of much ado about nothing, but Stephen A. is the older person in this little mini feud. He was just embarrassed because Lonzo called him up, and he just can't take the L.
Well, he got embarrassed because he also got roasted by social media. It wasn't just Lonzo; it was everybody. Because it's really not his place to report that, Mark. I mean, you could say, hey, what I'm hearing, I'm hearing out there that he's struggling a little bit, but he is making some progress. I mean, there's ways you could have done that interview and put that information out, and then when you say his doctors told you, well, where's the HIPAA law? Like, doctors can't tell you stuff like that. So, your sources are wrong. So at the end of the day, I was glad to see Lonzo because we haven't seen Lonzo. We haven't seen him since he left here. And it's good to see him in good spirits. And again, he challenged Stephen A. Smith in a fun way. It wasn't like, disrespectful. Stephen A. just was embarrassed. It's like, you got caught your pants pulled down and everybody's laughing at you. So now he's a little upset.
We were talking about, we joked about, your situation and HIPAA violations and all that. But Stephen A. goes on his show and saying, if you want, I'll give you the name of your doctors. And I mean, there's no reason for that. I mean, everyone knows the Bulls have said, Artis has said, we don't expect Lonzo to play at all next season. And Stephen inaccurately said, well, he's going to be out till January. He didn't even have his facts straight because Lonzo and the Bulls have acknowledged he's not playing next season.
Well, it's all about takes, Mark, hot takes, getting people to watch the show because there's not really a lot of stuff going on right now. They're going to bring Shannon Sharp on their show now to give him some juice. I was watching the show today and, it's funny watching Stephen A. Smith. He always has to trumpet what he does. He always got to make sure everybody knows, what he's accomplished. Oh, my first take has been the #1 show for 12 years. And, it's like, okay, man, you don't really need to tell that, man. You don't need to sell yourself. Everybody knows people watch your show, for whatever reason they watch it. I'm not a big fan of it. They do have some guys coming on that helps them out, like you like to listen to. They do have some good takes, whether it be NFL, NBA, or whatever. When it was just him and he's screaming and yelling, and man, I'm like, man, I can't do it. But hey, whatever sells, that's what I say. Whatever sells, that makes him happy. Go ahead and do it. But he was a little embarrassed about Lonzo Ball, man. That was good for Lonzo to put it out there and show everybody that, hey, this guy just making up things and trying to, make some personal takes and try to, get some clickbaits off of it.
And this all started with Lonzo made an appearance on our guy Trey Young. It was a podcast right now, and he had Lonzo as a guest. And Lonzo said, everything's going, according to schedule. I don't expect to play next season, but I'm hopeful that this surgery will, alleviate the condition I had and that maybe I can play in the 24-25 season. So I guess the news overall, even though Bulls fans are tired of waiting, maybe Lonzo will be able to play basketball again. And that's what we all want, Stacey.
Yeah, I mean, just to see the kid healthy. This kid, as you go down, you look at, guys like Brandon Roy, who got, career robbed with knee injuries, Derrick Rose, you go down the line, all these guys who had this really, really good talent, their careers were cut short from knee injuries. And so I just hope he gets back. I hope he's healthy. He's a big part of what the Bulls are doing.
Business of basketball always goes on, and the Bulls are going to be eligible to offer DeMar DeRozan a contract extension if they so choose in the coming months. Actually, they can do it right now if they want to. I guess the issue is going to be is how many years and what the dollars are. But Mark Eversley, at Bulls Fest, said that they want DeMar to be a part of this thing long term. Do you think they can find a halfway ground where both sides can be happy and DeMar can be here for a few years?
I think they can. I know DeMar likes playing here with the fans. He's a big reason why the Bulls are successful, and he's a key component to the big three. So I think, I don't know if it's going to be a hometown discount. I don't believe in that kind of stuff, but I think they'll come across something that's fair for both parties and what can help the team in the future, because, you don't want to get into a situation, Mark, where you don't have no money to offer free agents. And then there's that looming dark cloud in the background, Giannis, the Greek freak is out there saying, I'm not signing with Milwaukee. Right. I need to find out what direction they're going. So that right there, if you're the Bulls, you're like, hey, we got a chance. What can we do to possibly be in the Giannis sweepstakes, because he only wants to be on a championship team. And I know people are going, oh, well, Chicago's not a championship team. Well, if you add him on our roster, it does make us a championship team, no matter who we have on our roster. So I think it's important that, I would go out there if I'm AK and Mark, I'm out there finding the brothers. I'm out there offering the mother an opportunity to cook some Greek food for lunch and dinner for the team. Whatever it takes to get that kid, man, I'm doing it.
Yeah, they had Kostas briefly last year. He was playing with the G League team. So bring Kostas back, the youngest Antetokounmpo. Alex, give him a two-way deal. The article Stacey was referring to was a long feature article in the New York Times, and they mentioned the fact that Giannis is going to be eligible for an extension this summer. He said, I'm not signing this summer. We'll wait and see what happens. And the Bucks, even though they're one of the better teams in the East, Stacey, that's an older team. Drew Holiday said he only wants to play a couple more years. Brook Lopez is 35, 36. That thing, could unravel pretty quickly if they don't find a way to bring in some reinforcements.
Well, when your superstar player is talking like this, and he's the last person that you would think to be talking about free agency or not signing with the team, because he's been loyal to Milwaukee. He's always said he wanted to play there, stay there. So to hear him start to say that, hey, you know what, if we're not a championship caliber team, I'm going to be looking to go elsewhere. And what better place to come to Chicago? Big city, big market, got a great Greek community. His brand will blow up along with the Bulls brand. And so he'll have opportunities to play for a championship. But you add him, and then you got the pieces around him, man. Whew, oh, Lord have mercy.
And I think Stacey would be willing to kick in free hot sauce for life, right?
Yeah, he can have free hot sauce for life. Whatever he wants, he can have it. Hey, listen, if he wants me in the kitchen trying to learn how to cook Greek food, I'll do it.
So that's
Take one for the team.
That's going to be a storyline to watch. The other story in the NBA, how about James Harden being fined $100,000 for saying that he doesn't want to be a part of any organization that Daryl Morey is involved with?
Well, the NBA is getting tired of the players talking. Basically, it's come down to that. They told Damian Lillard, hey, enough, or you're going to be fined. Okay. James Harden has been making comments about the Philadelphia 76ers and Daryl Morey about promises and this and that. They couldn't move him. Okay. It's hard to trade James Harden because James Harden is starting to get that reputation mark as a guy who's a problem. It's like he's been on all these teams. Yeah, he's such a talent and he can score and he can assist and he's such a super talent. But is he worth the headache that he brings with him? Because who's to say if he gets to his destination? Let's say he gets to the Clippers. In 2 years, they're not winning, and he's like, I got to get out of here. He's like, you're leaving every 2 or 3 years, man, and teams are hesitant to make a deal for you when they know you have that tendency to be, unhappy after 2 seasons.
Yeah, a lot of contract situations to watch. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard with the Clippers are extension eligible. They may tell them no thank you. This is going to be a crazy not a couple of months. We only have about a month leading up into training camp. We could see some player movement or at least some guys that are unhappy leading to some future trades. Hey, let's switch the focus now and talk about the Bears. Our guy Mark Grody is standing by. He covers the team every day. And Groats, you with us? There he is.
I'm here. You guys look great.
Thanks for jumping on. We appreciate it. The big news today is that the starters will play in the preseason finale at Soldier Field against the Buffalo Bills. What's your reaction to that? And you think that Justin Fields and the offense will be happy to get some snaps?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, anytime anybody asked me or I had a microphone in front of me, I said that I think the starters and specifically Justin Fields needs to play. I've been pretty honest throughout this training camp that Justin Fields has been very up and down and I think average overall in this training camp. So to have another opportunity to get out there and go up against a different defense that will give you different looks, that has different intentions than your own defense does when they're just practicing in Lake Forest, I think it's really important. It's something that they need to see for sure. And look, I know that there's so many injuries with the offensive line, but the backups might be the guys that Justin Fields are going to war with when we start this thing for real on September 10th when the Green Bay Packers are here. So I'm really glad they're doing it. And I look forward to it. And also, guys, from an entertainment standpoint, we all love the backup quarterback. I get that, but I want to see the first string offense and defense play.
I totally agree. And then speaking of the defense, Justin Edwards, the linebacker, has really looked like he's had a very, very productive camp. He's had to fill in for injuries, but he looks like he's going to be a guy that's going to be huge on their defense. Talk a little bit about that and expectations for him.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's a guy that they brought over to play linebacker from Philadelphia and had about 115 or 150 tackles with the Eagles last year. So, I mean, and you add, TJ Edwards to Tremaine Edmonds, and you have, and Edmonds, just has started to be assimilated back in practice from his injury. But you have a couple of guys who are worth 100 tackles plus a year. I mean, every year of Tremaine Edmonds' career, he's had 100 tackles. And that was the position that immediately when free agency opened, and we're expecting this massive splash from the Bears because they've got all this money and we're thinking, okay, there's going to be a pass rusher coming in, their defensive linemen. But no, they were like, let's go get some linebackers. Let's get Tremaine Edwards. Let's get TJ Edwards. They draft Noah Sewell. They have Jack Sanborn coming back as well. So yeah, that's an incredibly important position to Matt Eberflus and what this 4-3 defense wants to do for sure.
Groats, let's get back to that offensive line situation. It's like a war zone now. You know, Tevin Jenkins had the mysterious injury where they said he injured both calves and he could be out until October. We saw last year that Lucas Patrick at center and Cody Whitehair at guard thing, that didn't work out so well. I mean, what are they going to do to patch that up for the opener? I mean, you know, they've had some young guys that have looked good in spots, but I'm not a big Lucas Patrick fan at this point in his career right now.
Yeah, neither am I, Mark. I agree with you. And like earlier this week, Lucas Patrick, I think it was on Monday. All these days run together for me. But on Monday, he was practicing. He has not practiced since then, Lucas Patrick.
Wow.
So, yeah. So he's the guy that's supposed to fill in at center. He hasn't been out there. So they've had a second-year guy in Doug Kramer, who was drafted out of Illinois last season when and I'm just kind of looking up to see where he was a sixth-round draft pick. Yeah, sixth-rounder for Ryan Poles. He's been centering the first line almost exclusively over the last several days. So, I mean, I love Doug Kramer, but I don't know if he's ready to run that thing, but probably could be just as effective as Lucas Patrick, to your point, Mark, that he wasn't very good. But then you've got Jatari Carter, who's been playing a big part all of a sudden on that line. He's another second-year guy. Is he ready? Larry Borum has been playing right tackle for Darnell Wright, the rookie who is out. And Larry Borum's another guy that has not been particularly good when he's had his opportunities. Luckily, Braxton Jones and Cody Whitehair, the only two projected starters, are healthy. And do you want to risk those guys in the preseason game tomorrow? But you kind of have to.
Yeah, get the lookout block ready where they just yell back, "Look out, Justin, time to run."
Well, I was saying this to somebody yesterday. If you are a gambling person, and I delve a little bit into gambling, take the over on Justin Fields' rushing yards because he's going to have to run again.
Oh yeah.
We all want to see him pass this year, but how the hell is he going to pass when the offensive line is second and third stringers?
Yeah, it's like that. It's like when you played Sandlot football, you couldn't sack the quarterback. You had to go 1001, 1002, 1003, and then everybody starts bull rushing. That's what it's going to look like this year. I really hope they can get that out. I work that out because they've got so many weapons on the offense. They spent so much time building up the weapons to give this kid someone to throw to, and it's going to be a shame, Grote, if he can't throw the ball to those guys because he doesn't have time.
Yeah. By the way, on the Sandlot, did you get one blitz though? We only allowed for one blitz. You got to count, but you could blitz and you had to yell. You actually had to yell blitz.
Yes, you had blitz. You had that one guy. And it was always the fastest.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, look, DJ Moore, they brought him in here, a part of the trade when they traded away the first round pick to the Carolina Panthers. Yeah, that is the biggest positive that I could tell you about from this camp, that DJ Moore has been everything that we expected in terms of training camp. Obviously the first preseason game when he takes that pass from behind the line of scrimmage and takes it into the end zone for the touchdown. That was so symbolic of, wow, Justin Fields has an actual playmaker. Chase Claypool has not been healthy for a while since he had that hamstring injury a few weeks ago, but I'm expecting big things from him. Before he went down, he was having, I thought, a terrific camp. And, he told me last year in the locker room, when he was having a bad year, he said, look, I need OTAs. I need camp. I need to be there from the beginning. And when we saw him in there, he was very effective. You also have Darnell Mooney healthy, who missed the last 5 games of the season last year, and then a pretty potent running backs room as well. So, the weapons are a little bit more real this year for the Bears for sure.
What's the deal with injuries? I know that there are NFL guidelines, but Flus is so tight-lipped about guys getting hurt. It just drives you crazy. I mean, you had Cole Kmet went back on a cart from the indoor facility back to the main Hallis Hall, and then he's practicing the next day. Darnell Wright turns an ankle, no information. We don't know if it's an ankle. I know that they're not obligated until week 1 to put out an injury report, but do you think they're really helping anybody by being so secretive about these injuries?
I mean, I guess in some cases I can understand, but for the most part, Mark, it's very frustrating. And I got to tell you, I mean, Matt Eberflus seems to, I don't know if revel in it is the right word, but he's very confident in not telling us until, I think, as he said, September 6th is when they start to be required to release an injury report. So it does get really frustrating. Like we got like a 3 or 4 word answer today on Darnell Wright, one of the most important rookies and players on this team, because he's projected to be a right tackle. And, we got a non-answer. That what they told us, or what Matt Eberflus told us, is that if it's a more serious injury, they would add details. Now, they kind of did that with Tevin Jenkins, saying that his injury has gone from day to day to week. But there's been guys like Chase Claypool, I mentioned, Jaquan Brisker, Eddie Jackson, who these guys have been out for weeks now, and we're still not getting updates on them. When we do ask the question, he continues to say that these are not serious injuries. So I guess you have to have a little bit of trust until they tell us something differently. But yeah, Mark, it's very frustrating.
One of the things that's so important on the defensive end is you got to have a good front four that can put pressure on the quarterback. And then that makes your defensive backs look really good, because there's a lot of man-to-man coverage. They can flow to the ball. How good if the Bears safeties are healthy, Eddie Jackson and Jaquan Brisker, how good can they be if healthy?
Yeah, I mean, those guys are super talented. Eddie Jackson, they do love, to Eddie Jackson's credit, being in a new regime, he's one of the guys that this coaching staff particularly likes. So Eddie Jackson can definitely thrive in this defense. I'm really looking forward to seeing Jaquan Brisker, because he had a good year last year. I don't think he had a great year. Good for a rookie, and you could tell his arrow is pointed up. And there's definitely leadership skills where he's involved as well. So I can't wait to see him. And then to your point too about the guys on the defensive line, I can't tell you how many times last year Jalen Johnson, one of the Bears' best cornerback, would talk about how when they got good pressure, that it made life so much easier for the secondary. Now, that's going to be interesting this year, and I think some of it is going to depend on, and these are two guys that we should all keep a close eye on Saturday, and those are the 2 young defensive linemen that they drafted, Gervon Dexter in the 2nd round out of Florida, and then Zach Pickens in the 3rd round out of South Carolina. The faster these 2 guys come along and start to get that push towards the quarterback, that's going to be incredibly important. You have Justin Jones coming back at the 3 technique this year. Obviously on the ends, hopefully DeMarcus Walker is eventually healthy. And then the big splash signing that they made with Ilnyckyj Ngakoue, usually good for about 10 sacks per year. So I'm looking forward to that. And those guys, look, the secondary, the safeties that you mentioned, Stacey, those guys were, like I said, very good last year, although Eddie got injured towards the end of the year. I would love to see how good those guys can be with a potent defensive line, and obviously the linebackers that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, so after this game on Saturday, you've got 2 weeks to wait until the opener. That gives them a lot of time to finalize the roster. There's some crazy rumors out there that the Bears might be interested in Jonathan Taylor, which makes no sense. I mean, if you're going to make a trade for a disgruntled veteran, why don't you get Chris Jones from the Chiefs? There's a guy that could really make an impact on your football team. Is there any validity to any of this stuff, or is it just people throwing stuff at the wall?
The answer is I don't know, because I have not been able to confirm anything myself. Obviously, if he did join the Bears, and disgruntled would be a good word. Why do you want a disgruntled guy on your team, unless they somehow were to make him happy? Obviously, he would become the best running back on the team. I guess what worries me a little bit is, and maybe not worries, maybe that's not the right word. If they're very concerned about running backs, they're very into running backs, because I think that they feel like if Justin Fields is not the passer that we think he can be, you got to make that the identity of your team. And I guess the reason that I say it's unfortunate is because nobody really wants the identity of the Chicago Bears to keep on being running the football. Look, we've seen that act, and it only gets you so far in this NFL. You want a guy in Justin Fields who can use his arm to get the ball down the field. So it makes sense. I mean, it's a very talented running back, but it just got the wheels spinning for me. Like, they really are leaning on the running game this year. It makes sense, but it makes me wonder how much faith they have in the passing game from Justin Fields.
And I know it's still early on Ryan Poles, but it seems to me that he's going in the right direction and building the team and changing the culture from within deep. Not just topical, but he's really trying to start from ground level up and build this team the way he wants it. Do you get that same impression?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I have liked a lot of the moves that Ryan Poles has made. I mean, he's not hit on everything, and the jury is still out in a big way when it comes to his personnel. I mean, we'll see. These players are cooking now. We'll see if a lot of them sprout. But to your point, last year, as painful as it was, Ryan Poles tore the team down and started to bring in kind of rank and file players, but it's a rebuild. It's a classic rebuild, and some credit should be given to, Ryan Poles' bosses, and George McCaskey, who allowed him to do that. He was allowed to be put in a situation where the Bears lost 10 straight games, but yeah, I mean, he does seem to have a good eye. He's transparent with his players. He's transparent with the media to a certain point, or to a higher point than his predecessor, Ryan Pace, was. But I am starting to like his vision. And we mentioned, I was thinking about this today, actually, as it pertains to Ryan Poles. The drafting of Braxton Jones last year in the 5th round, and to have had that guy play left tackle in 17 games last year, and to have Braxton Jones be one of the only healthy offensive lineman this year. If Braxton Jones improves just a little bit this year, and I've been skeptical, but if he improves a little bit this year, that is a golden find of a draft pick. That is vision. Hey, if Jatari Carter, if he comes out and he really plays, I mean, this is a center from Southern in the 7th round, and he's all of a sudden playing right guard. If they've got something in him, that's huge. Same with Doug Kramer. And then I start to think, man, this guy who played offensive line, I get it, but playing and evaluating are two totally different things. If he gets these guys right, that is something, drafting these offensive linemen in the middle and later rounds.
Well, Mark, keep up the good work. I know you'll be following all the roster moves next week. We'll look forward to checking in with you on that. You can follow Mark's great work on The Score. You hear him evenings with Gabe Ramirez. You hear him all throughout day parts on different shows, and does outstanding work. We're just lucky to have him here with the Gimme the Hot Sauce podcast. So, Groats, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys having me on. We'll talk to you next week.
Yes, sir.
Mark Grody filling us in on the Bears. Up next, it's the Hall of Famer, Artis Gilmore, with stories.
A-Train.
Yeah, we can't wait to check in with the A-Train. That's next on Give Me the Hot Sauce. I'll tell you what, we got a special treat now for NBA Bulls fans of a certain age. The A-Train, the Hall of Famer, Artis Gilmore, is our special guest, joining us from his home in Jacksonville. And I guess that's a good place to start the story, Artis. You burst onto the national scene playing in the 1970 National Championship game against John Wooden's UCLA Bruins. And that Jacksonville team really captured the nation by storm. Everyone was cheering for the underdog team and just really captivated by the squad that you had. When you look back on those memories of your days at Jacksonville, what stands out the most?
Well, Mark, I would, if you put it in any special category, it would have to be playing against UCLA in the finals for a national championship. And I think now, even to this day, Jacksonville University is the smallest university to ever compete for a national championship. So, anything in particular, that would be a special moment for me and memories.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, okay, so I'm a big fan of the A-Train. Okay, I remember watching the Big Afro and just how you dominated guys. And we talked about this the other day. Is to me, I don't feel like you get the credit that you deserve as being one of the best big men in the game. I think they discredit because you were in the ABA, Artists, and they kind of discredit that. They don't understand you're a rookie of the year and MVP of that league. They had Dr. J, Dan Issel, had Hall of Famers in that league. And matter of fact, people would argue that the ABA was better than the NBA at that time. And it just that baffles me how 11-time All-Star counting NBA and ABA in your 18-year career doesn't get the respect that he deserves from his peers.
Well, Stacey, there's a combination of things there. You're right about the ABA initially starting the ABA. The NBA sort of discredited because of the competition between the two. And just another combination, I was never really a verbal person that really makes a lot of noise. I thought my noise was made by my performance on the floor or on the court. So you're right for the most part. That I feel like part of that recognition thing comes from not being basically the verbal person. Just like you hear, some of these other wagons, they makes a lot of noise, and so they verbally, those are the ones that gets the attention. And of course, I've never been that.
You won a championship in the ABA. You were an MVP, and Stacey was telling the story. So many great players during that era, but they didn't get the exposure because there wasn't a national TV contract where viewers could get a chance to watch that. What was the style of basketball like in the ABA for people who haven't seen it? How would you best describe the way it was played? Because obviously the three-point shot started in the ABA.
That's true, Mark. One of the things that there was a tremendous amount of action and excitement, except for the colorful basketball, the NBA adopted all those rules. And you talk about the last All-Star game that was before the merger came about, and that was the creation of the slam dunk, the three-point shootout, and those type things that was really exciting. Then, we think that we had a really exciting brand of basketball. We was running, and they talked about the NBA had 24 seconds, and the guy just pound the ball and push it in and try to get it into the big guy. And you had guys like Oscar Robertson, who was great shooters and physical players, great players. But they just talked about, especially really a credit to Chicago Bulls when they had Norm Van Leer, Jerry Sloan, and those type guys. They were really physical, and that three-point play kind of really was not available to those guys, and in a sense, they said the NBA was not an exciting brand of basketball during that time.
Yeah, that's to me. I mean, when you look at some of the players that played in the ABA, I mean, these guys are Hall of Famers now in the NBA. I mean, you got like guys like Rick Barry, you got George Gervin, Dr. J. You came in as a rookie with Dr. J. And I mean, there was so much talent in the ABA.
Yeah. Moses Malone,
Louis Dampier.
Yeah.
I mean, you had some really, oh my goodness. I mean, Charlie Scott, George McGinnis. I mean, there was so much talent in the ABA. You could argue guys had just as much talent as most of the NBA teams at that time. And so when you see how you guys have revolutionized the game, they've given you guys credit for the three-point line, the slam dunk contest. You guys were really credited for that. But to not credit you for your time played there and what you accomplished when you played there, I think that's a discredit. Regardless of the beefs that the NBA had back then, realistically, when you look at the stats that you guys put up, you got to honor those stats. Those were amazing stats. I mean, you were a 5-time All-Star your first 5 years there. And when you look at the talent there, how can that not be recognized?
Well, Stacey, that's good and really nice the way you expressed it. But I don't have any resentments because I have not received that kind of recognition. But I think probably if I would have, I would probably be able to purchase a couple of extra loaves of bread to put in my house. but uh, but I'm really happy and amazed at the statistics that I was able to put up, and what little recognition, especially making it to the Hall, becoming a Hall of Famer after extraordinary amount of years I was inducted. But those things kind of has a significant meanings to be able, my family to be there and part of it. And at that time, I had a couple of really young grandbabies that was there as well. So that was another part of the history that had a significant meaning to me and an impact long term. That I made it to the pinnacle, which is the Hall of Fame.
Of course, back in the mid 70s, the ABA and the NBA merged. The NBA took 4 of the ABA franchises. The rest of the players went into a pool for the dispersal draft. You were the first pick by the Chicago Bulls and went on to play 6 seasons there. Artis, I did the Bulls pre- and post-game shows on TV with Norm Van Leer for a number of years, God rest his soul. And he always talked about that 77 season. He thought, if we had gotten by Portland, we might have gone all the way. What are your recollections of that?
Well, that we had a decision to make, and we was able to put the ball in play against Portland, and I was speaking to Bill Walton just not too long about that particular game, and their 3 best players had filed out of the game. Walton, Maurice Lucas, and Dave Twazik.
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
And we had a few seconds left on the clock, and I think we talked about trying to get the ball into me and make a decision, but we ended up passing to move the ball around. And I don't know exactly what happened, but we ended up having a perimeter shot that did not go in, and as a result, Portland was able to take advantage of that and move forward. And they took care of everybody else, and especially the favorite team to win at that time was Julius Erving and his team in Philadelphia, Daryl Dawkins and those individuals. But Stacey, to tell you, and Mark, that it was a really nice run. But you imagine it was only a 3-game series,
Yeah,
and
best of 3.
Yeah.
we started first in Portland, won, Daedala won, and then we flew all the way back to Chicago to play 1 game. We won that game, and then flew back to Portland for the third game and the deciding game, which Portland was able to take advantage of.
When you look at today's game, Artis, and see how it's up tempo, a lot of 3-point shooting. The big man now no longer is a low post guy. He's more a perimeter shooting big. What was it like seeing a guy like Jokic get back to dominating and being a low post presence? Because now you see teams starting to load up to go against him this year. They're getting more depth at the center spot because he's so talented and so big. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, Jokovic, he is a brand new, and the game, Stacey, as we know it, and from the time that I played, it's about an evolutionary process, and all. And as I think back in the early years before me, guys like Bob Cousy taking the 2-handed set shot but the evolutionary part of the game has moved forward. And one of the things that was sort of crazy when I played, there was the players didn't have the kind of luxury that the young players today. Stephen Curry, for an example, and I come back to him, but the fact is, when we played, guys took a couple of shots, and if you missed 2 shots, there was a hook over there on the side of the coach right next to the coach. He's looking at you, and you're looking over your shoulder with that fear. But coming back to Stefan, I mean, he missed 9 shots in a row, but he's still relaxed, and it's about continue to build that confidence. And I guess that would credit that to the evolutionary part of the game itself, and what has really happened is and brought about this kind of excitement. You said guys like Stephon shooting 3-pointers, man, they shoot half courts.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
shot from half court and very comfortable with them. So, and I remember the first time that I watched a player that was able to take an incredible range from behind the 3-point play, the 3-point arc was Reggie, Reggie Miller. In fact, his rookie year we played in Chicago, and Reggie Theus was defending against. We had scored a point. We was up by like 1 point or so, 2 points, and at the last few seconds, Reggie Miller took the ball and stepped back, a couple of feet behind the 3-point lane, and our guys were just kind of caught standing there, and he just dropped it and knocked it down, and then they were able to take home that win against the Bulls in his rookie year.
Yeah, I think some people don't realize that you had two separate stints with the Bulls. You played from 76 to 82. Then you had some great years in San Antonio. You come back to play for the Bulls in 1987, and they got a cat named Michael Jordan who's leading the league in scoring. What was that like for you? Here you are, towards the end of your career, a guy that was a low post scorer and a dominant low post player, and you see the way the fans gravitated to Michael. He was really an international phenomenon. What was that like for you at the latter part of your career to see Michael Jordan captivating the NBA universe?
Oh, I mean, it was just phenomenal, and just the workouts with Michael and of course Stacey can verify this type of intensity and his mental focus towards just accomplishing, being an accomplished basketball player, and he was able to, and he worked hard every day, and that was like a virus. It spread it. Everybody was into it. They bought into, working hard, and in those early years, it was really a challenge for Michael trying to get past the Detroit. But and I felt that I could have been a positive impact, but apparently I don't know why that didn't work out. I ended up being in Boston, for the second half of that year, and but it was great. It was really really nice, and a pleasant part of my career being able to play with Michael.
You know what? A lot of people don't know, when they see like how we travel, the travel today is totally different than when you were playing. Talk a little bit about what it was like being an NBA player in the 70s and early 80s and the travel and the things that you had to do, to get ready for games compared to what we have to see today.
Stacey, just to give you an example, we played, after the great part of being in Chicago, the one positive thing, you could get a direct flight from from O'Hare to basically any destination that we played, location where we played. But now, to give you an example, when I played in San Antonio, we would catch say for an example, we played and gonna have a game in Utah the next night. We play a game in San Antonio, and the route to get to Utah, first we would fly either to Dallas or Houston, and then we would fly from there to Denver.
Oh wow!
And then over to Utah, play that night, and make that same run, returning back, and then having to play a third, 3 games in 3 nights in different locations like that. So, absolutely a difference what the players have, and what has happened to create a comfort for the players, and not wear them out as within travel. So I remember when I was with Boston, in Detroit, they were the first team to have access to that private transportation. And so whenever they came to Boston and they played the coach Daly, one of the things he said, man, it's like a 5 game, I mean, different swing as far as positive.
Yes.
You being able to sleep in your own bed, you go up and play. And they had one of those big planes, those old plays, and that thing just pop and cracking, as it depart from the airport. Well, I mean, with the technology back in the '80s, then was not like it is today, but uh, that allowed Detroit to come in and late at night, Logan Airport, and all of a sudden, this plane taking off really late. The citizens, and the community didn't enjoy that loud plane as it depart. But it was great for the Pistons for them to allow them to be able to get back home. And I remember Larry Bird said that after I had left the Celtics, he said, "Man, you know what was really great that we was able to go over and play in Minnesota, play the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I could be back in my house by 12 o'clock that night
Yeah.
and get in my own bed."
Yeah.
And so that those things has a significant impact on the game itself, and allow the fans to be able to watch the best performance they could observe from these very talented young players in the league, and not exhausted old tired guys, you know just getting off a long road trip and dragging into the arena trying to get themselves ready to play.
During your career, that was really the golden era of the big man, and you played against all the greats. You think about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, you mentioned Bill Walton, Moses Malone, Robert Parrish, going back to guys like Bob Lanier. Who was the toughest guy that you had to go up against in your career, Artis?
Yeah, Mark, everybody was ready to play. You talk about Dave Cowens, all those guys
Yeah.
created different problems for me, on the perimeter. Even, Dan Issel, when I had to compete against him for so many years, we were teammates with the Kentucky Colonels. And then, his departure going to the Denver, he was able to elevate the Denver, the Nuggets. And so I would say it was really, really an incredible challenge playing against Kareem. He's probably one of the toughest. But the most important thing for me, I said, well, if Kareem is a great offensive player, give me the ball so I can make him work on the defensive end, and not allow him just that luxury of me having to challenge him on the offensive end of the floor. So uh, these all of those individuals poses different challenges for me during those really, really tough battles. And Bill Walton, you mentioned him. He was just an incredible, talented player.
Talk a little bit about your time here in Chicago. I consider Chicago the best city, NBA city. And I mean, there's always something to do, great restaurants, great food. The fans are super loyal. Talk about your time here in Chicago during the 80s and what it was like being in this city and being arguably the biggest star on the Bulls team at that time.
Yeah, in the '70s and the early '80s, and that's one of the things that we had some. You mentioned that pool of dispersal that I was first player picked by. I remember the Bulls only won 24 games that year, and when I was brought to Chicago, and the other great player was Scott May, who was
Yeah.
on the undefeated team and and at the with the University of Indiana, and uh, Scott was end up being very ill for had some problem for 3 different years. He had both his knee operated. First he had mono, then next
Yeah.
year had surgery on one knee, and then the following year had surgery on the other knee. So Scott had a very difficult time walking on the floor as a healthy player. His early years, and he and I was going to be the combination that was probably going to make a difference. But then we end up in a situation where we were lacking some depth, and the Bulls apparently they were not in a position where they knew exactly had people working in basketball that would be able to put those combinations together. So I think because of that, we really struggled over the years.
Well, Artis, we're admiring the photo over your shoulder. You got a beautiful family. I know you're still doing some broadcast work in Jacksonville. You've made that a lifelong home. Maybe you could, before we let you go, talk about what you're doing now and your great family that you have.
Yeah, this picture up here is my wife and daughter, and this particular daughter, I lost her a couple of years ago, and she's got she gave me 3 grandkids, and the set of twins is 13 years old, and the little boy is 9 years old. And beyond that, I'm working at the university, and I really enjoy working as an analyst on the radio with the partner. I've been there for probably 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And each year is kind of a learning process for me because I never really had that experience of being an analyst and broadcasting. But it's been a learning process, and I've thoroughly enjoyed. And I was going to call the Bulls up and Stacey, you and Mark, and find out if they could help me find some additional work.
Hey, I tell you what, if one of your guys gets hot from the three-point line, I think Stacey will let you borrow his trademark line, which of course is, "Give me the hot sauce." So if somebody heats up from the three-point line, you can borrow that from Stacey.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can take whatever you want, Artis. Hey man, I idolize you, my man. You're a Bulls legend here, and hopefully one day they put your number up in the rafters where it deserves to be.
Thank you very much, Stacey. Mark.
Artis, it was great catching up with you. Best of luck. Enjoy yourself down in Jacksonville. And I know all Bulls fans have fond memories of those teams with Storm and Norm and those great crew in the mid-'70s. So thanks again for joining us on Gimme the Hot Sauce. Great catching up with the Hall of Famer Artis Gilmore. We've been having so much fun. We haven't been able to tell you about some of our great sponsors, starting with our good buddy Jeff Vukovich. When it comes to insurance for your auto, home, and business, make sure you contact the king of insurance, our friend nationwide agent Jeff Vukovich. You can reach him at jeffvuk.com. That's jeffvuk.com. The phone number 847-825-4783. He also has the best jingle in the business as Stacey's getting ready for another season of Bulls basketball. Stacey, how are the Golden Pipes today?
Nationwide is on your side.
There we go.
They're good, Mark. They're good, baby.
We could have had Artis provide a little bass too to that.
Yeah,
he's got the deep pipes.
Hey, you got the deep voice. Give him a tambourine. You'd be straight.
And you mentioned the fact that all of our guests receive a 4-pack of your signature hot sauces. And if you're looking for the hottest sauce in the game, we've got it for you. We've got all the sauce your kitchen needs, from Chicago Fire 1871, the hottest of the bunch, to our King's favorite, St. Pat's Verde. Gimme the Hot Sauce has got you covered. Available in all Jewel Osco stores in the Chicagoland area. But if you live outside of Chicagoland, and we know we've got fans all over the world, stop by GimmeTheHotSauce.com. Use the code KING21 to get 21% off your first order. And even though Tim has gone AWOL, when he gets back from his little mini vacation in Florida, he'll be back in his closet packing up that hot sauce, right, Stacey?
Oh, packing up that hot sauce.
That hot sauce packer.
Hell of a packer.
And we're sorry that we don't, neither one of us do a Christopher Walken impersonation, but we'll make sure that Timmy gives you a little bit extra next week.
Or Tyson.
No, we don't.
No, we don't do that. No, Tyson gets no play. We don't do that.
Cat, yeah. Yeah. So we're missing Tim. So he could have been suffering with the heat in Chicago. Instead, he did a 2.5-hour flight to Fort Myers to sweat down there. Hey, speaking of hot, the Chicago Cubs are hot. They've won the last 2 series against the Kansas City Royals and the Tigers. They got a 4-game series coming up against the Pittsburgh Pirates. And Stacey, right now, they are tied for second in the wild card race with the Cincinnati Reds. The top 3 in that race will go on to the postseason. It's been interesting to watch them. You know, that Cody Bellinger has been a revelation. He's playing like the MVP he was in his Dodgers years. If they can get enough starting pitching down the stretch, I think they can make it to the postseason. What's your read on the Cubs?
Well, that's what we've been talking about. I mean, it's going to be pitching for them. They're hitting the ball. Guys are starting to step up now, and they're starting to get hot at the right time. It's the pitching. Are they going to, what are they going to do, as they go around? Are the relievers going to have to step up and pitch longer innings and get more innings out of those guys? Stroman, what's the situation with him? I mean, do they go out and try to do something, before it all happens? I don't know. I mean,
yeah, at this point, they may have to go to their minor leagues to try to bring up a starting pitcher.
You got to do something, man. And give those kids, even if you got to do that, Mark, you got to go that route. Give those kids some innings right now. Like, give them some innings, give them some innings so they can get some work in, not just bring them up for the playoffs or a situation where the situation may be too big for them. You know what I'm saying? Give them some opportunities, bring some guys up, pitch, and then let's see what happens.
Yeah, right now they've got a number of guys on their staff who would you put them in the category of soft tossers. You got Kyle Hendricks, who's always won with less than stellar velocity, and then Drew Smiley's been getting hit hard, the left-hander in the rotation, and you're never sure what you're going to get from Jamison Tyone. So, they're really in a situation where they may have to go dip into that minor league pool. And September 1st, the roster is going to expand to 28, so maybe they can bring up a couple of pitchers who can help them on the stretch run. The other side of town, Stacey, was where the big news was in the past week. Jerry Reinsdorf decided to clean house in the front office, letting Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn go. And now there have been reports that he might stay in-house and bring their farm director, Chris Getz, who used to be an infielder for the White Sox, let him call the shots. So, nothing but, turmoil on the South Side. And it really was a move that was anti-Jerry, because normally he's extremely loyal with his front offices, and he just decided that this season has been, such a disappointment that they had to make a change, because Kenny's been here almost 30 years and Rick Hahn about 20.
Well, and that's one thing about Jerry. He's very loyal to his people. If you're working for Jerry, you can go ahead and get ready to work 25, 30 years if you want. You know what I'm saying? Because he's loyal to his employees. But at some point, you've got to start looking at performance. This is a team. Last 3 or 4 years, people have thought this team had enough talent to challenge. To get to the World Series, win a pennant, but for whatever reason, injuries. Guys getting hurt at the wrong time. Guys missing a lot of games, turmoil in the locker room. You're starting to find out there's turmoil in the locker room. You can't have that. You can't have that. There's got to be some changes, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with the manager.
Yeah, Pedro.
Do they feel comfortable? Yeah, do they feel comfortable with him going forward, or is he going to be on a short leash, next season?
Yeah, he's got a couple more years left on his contract, and there's been some talk that they don't really want to eat those last 2 years and bring in a new manager. But if you do decide to bring in a president of baseball operations from outside the organization, much like they did with the Bulls when they brought in AK, he went out and got the best manager or the coach he could find in Billy Donovan, and they may give a new GM the same kind of freedom to say, if Pedro Grifol's not your guy, go ahead and hire the manager you think is best for the team, because at some point, you have to consider the long-term future of the franchise, because, there's been reports that Reinsdorf has been looking at other locations. They might want a new stadium. I mean, there's so many angles on this story, Stacey. You could talk about it for hours, but I think it's just going to be interesting to see what happens in the offseason, what direction the White Sox go.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different, storylines here, So at the end of the day, it comes down to winning. And as what Jerry did with AK and Mark Eversley, hired outside the Bulls organization, brought in, 2 guys from different places and said, here's the keys, whatever you need, go do what you got to do, trade picks, do whatever you got to do to make it a winner. And I'm sure that Jerry, because he loves the White Sox, he wants to win a World Series. Yep. I mean, he's not in it to not win the World Series and just collect, checks. He wants to win a World Series. That's the White Sox is his baby. I guarantee if you ask him, if you had to take, you can only have one, the Bulls or the White Sox. I guarantee you take the White Sox.
Yeah, I'll never
Guarantee
forget covering that '05 championship when Paul Konerko gave him that baseball from the last out of the World Series. The look on Jerry's face, I've never seen him smile ear to ear like that. Baseball is truly his favorite sport.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to put. I mean, listen, Kenny Williams has been there for a long time, and sometimes you got to get a different voice in there, got to get different eyes in there, and then as much as it hurts, because he's been loyal to Kenny. There's been other times where, if you think about Kenny's track record, before the World Series and even after the World Series, you could have fired him then, but they didn't, and so they just got to regroup, get the right people in the right places, and then, get refocused on where they're trying to go. And they got to clean up the locker room. You got to find out which guys want to be there, which guys are there to play baseball and win championships, and which guys are here just to collect a check. And once you find that out, then you move forward.
The other big story on the baseball beat, we just found this out late on Wednesday night. Shohei Ohtani, who's ready for free agency, they've discovered that he has another tear of the ulnar collateral ligament in his elbow, which usually means a major Tommy John procedure and that he wouldn't pitch at all next year in 2024. And Shohei's already had that done once on that elbow back in 2018. So now he's heading into free agency. People were saying he might be getting $600-700 million. That's certainly going to reduce what some teams willing to pay. And I know that the Cubs were a team that were going to consider making a serious offer for Ohtani. Some team will still give him a lot of money, Stacey, but I think they may be finding out that maybe the body is not meant to do both of these things at the same time.
Well, and Mark, I mean, they're really putting a lot of pressure on this kid. This kid is one of the best pitchers in the game, and he's one of the best hitters. And there's times, Mark, where he's pitching, one night and then turning around and being a DH the next night. That's a lot of stress on that kid. And I hope he didn't have Tommy John surgery, because what you're seeing him do is modern day Babe Ruth. You're not going to see anybody else do this. You'll never see it again in our lifetime. A guy that can come in and pitch and be dominant, and a guy that can be a hitter and be dominant. Not just come up there and pitch and be average, Mark, where your ERA is high, or being a hitter that's batting around 200. This guy is exciting to watch, whether he's on the mound or whether he's hitting in the box, and you're not going to see it again.
Yeah, and there were teams that were speculated that might be in on Ohtani. Stacey's got the LA hat on, and I wouldn't be surprised if he winds up going across town playing with the Dodgers. What do you think?
Well, Dodgers got the money,
They do,
and Dodgers, he's looking at the Dodgers, and he probably wants to stay in LA. You're with the Angels now. Why pack up and move and go all the way across the country to say New York or something? New York would be another team that would be interested in having him on that roster. But you've been in LA. There's a community there that has embraced him. He loves it out there, and all he has to do is just go a couple of miles.
Yeah.
he's and he's still staying in LA. So I mean that's the perfect scenario for him.
Speaking of LA, that's going to be one of our topics on What Are We Watching? Brought to you by our friends at Biggers Mazda. Their sizzling new Elgin location at Randall Road is the biggest Mazda store in the state of Illinois. Biggers is offering a bottle of Stacey's signature hot sauce with first test drives of new or pre-owned vehicles. Everything from the coolest SUVs to the stunning Miata. Join the fun at 2100 Randall Road in Elgin at Biggers Mazda. Tell them Whispers sent you, and you'll get a very funny look and be shown the door probably. I don't know.
No, tell them Francisco sent you.
Oh, that's right. He's been there collecting hot sauce.
He's been getting free hot sauce every week.
They see him walk through the door, and they're like, "You again?"
Yeah, exactly.
Explain what car is he going to drive next week, Francisco? Free rides, courtesy of Jim Lecter at Biggers Mazda. And I mentioned L.A. Stacey, Tim and I were the first guys to start watching Winning Time, which is, the dramedy based on the rise of the Lakers under Jerry Buss. And you started watching season 1. What are your thoughts on it?
Hey, listen, man. It's a good show.
Yeah.
I don't care. I mean, I know there's some things in that show that's not true. It's a little bit just a little bit overboard. But there is a lot of that stuff that is true, and I give John C. Reilly a lot of credit, man. Like he looks like the owner. He does. He looks
bad hair and
like
everything.
Jerry Buss, bad hair. I tell you what, though, they could have got a better Pat Riley. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on. Hey, listen, I ain't taking anything away from the actor that's playing him, but the actor that's playing him right now looks like he's drunk. He looks like he's been drunk. Pat Riley was a nice looking dude. Okay. They could have got anybody. They could have got Jake Gyllenhaal to play Pat Riley. They could have got someone better, better looking, more. I mean, looks just like Pat Riley. I tell you what, man, that Pat Riley. I'm just laughing. I want to call Pat up and say, man, you might need to sue on that one. Everybody looks like there's something. I think the guy who looks like Magic looks like Magic.
Yeah, that's well cast. How about the guy playing Jerry West in season 1? They show him on the basketball court. He's about 50 pounds overweight. That's got to be embarrassing for the logo.
Hey, listen. Jerry West should be looking at that guy going, "What the hell?" Like now, later, he kind of resembles Jerry West later. Okay, but when he was winning the championship and he wasn't happy, and he was just sitting there with that, he looked like he snuck on the floor like as a fan.
Yeah.
And another thing too is like, how about we get the guys' natural sizes? Okay, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is like 7'2", 7'3".
Yeah.
The Kareem they got on the show looks like he's about 6'7". Like, he doesn't look very, very tall.
Well, they always try to shoot up at him to make him look a little bit taller.
To make him look tall.
Yeah.
I tell you what, and I didn't know Jack McKinney, had that bad of an accident. I did not know that. And I didn't know they made Paul Westhead look like a egghead. Like, I didn't know he was that. In the show, they make him look like he's incompetent. Like, he shouldn't be there. He's a history teacher. He recites history poems. I played against Paul Westhead when he was at Loyola Marymount when Hake Gathers and Bo Kimball.
Yeah.
And his offense that he ran where they were scoring 130, 140. And now you got to remember, Mark, my Oklahoma team put up a lot of points. We averaged over 103 points a game. So we were playing an NBA-style game. And that was the one team that we honestly said, we came to the sideline and we told Coach Billy Tubbs, like, hey, Coach, let's get out of this press, man. we can't run with these boys. Because they were playing international rules. The ball would go through the net, and they had a big guy named, I think it's Per Stoomer or something. He's about 6'10" kid. He would get the ball out the net because he was used to playing European ball. So he'd get it out the net, one step in, and then throw a full court pass to Bo Kimball or Jeff Fryer. Bo Kimball, I mean, they could shoot the basketball they were getting. You score 2, they come back and shoot a 3. And they put up some enormous numbers. So when I see Paul Westhead in that situation, and then I'm watching this Winning Time, how they have him look like he's incompetent, nobody wants him there, you just go, wow, I didn't know that.
Well, when you follow the storyline in season 1, Jack McKinney wanted to be kind of a dictator. And I think he purposely brought in Westhead because he knew he was a guy, from a small school. He wasn't going to rock the boat. He was going to do whatever Jack said. And then when Jack had the accident and he had to be the head coach, because back in those days there was only one assistant, he got elevated to a situation that he was in over his head. I mean, you have strong personalities like Kareem and Magic, and he couldn't handle it.
Well, and they made Kareem look so like anti-team, like he didn't want to be part of the team. He never got into team huddles. He never, when they'd be practicing and they'd run up and down the court, he'd just go sit on the sideline or read a newspaper. Like, it was just amazing how they made Kareem look like this guy that was a malcontent. Then when you see Kareem later on, and that's the one thing that I really miss coming into this league because, I grew up watching Kareem, Bird, Magic, Dr. J, all these great players, Artis, Gilmore. When I came in the league in '89, most of those guys were done. They were gone. Kareem was gone. You had Larry and McHale and Parrish were at the end of their careers. Larry back was so bad he couldn't even sit on the bench. He had to, lay on the floor.
Yeah.
Then you see Dr. J was gone. So I missed playing against all these nostalgic players. I would have just loved to be able to just rub elbows with Dr. J. Now, I tell the story about Larry Bird, when my first game going up against Larry Bird, where he's shooting like 10 feet behind the 3-point line. And we had, Phil had designed a defensive play with me and Horace to switch because they ran a down screen between Kevin McHale and Larry Bird. So we would switch because we were the same size. So he said, Stacey, when you switch out to Larry, deny him the ball and make him get as far past the 3-point line as possible, which I did. So when I'm guarding Larry, my feet are actually on the 3-point line. I'm on the 3-point line, and I was quick. I mean, you're not going to beat me. He's not going to beat me off dribble. So he's telling me, shot clock's winding down. He's telling me, hey, Rook, you going to give me the shot? And I'm like, shit, shoot it. You ain't going to do nothing with it. Man, you 35 feet away. You out there. He's out there Denzel Valentine range at a hash mark. And I'm like, there's no way in the world you're going to take this shot. He goes, if I take this shot and make it, you're coming out the game. And this is the Boston Garden. The crowd was going crazy. Shot clock's winding down. You hear Phil Jackson, get up on him, get up on him. And I'm waving Phil off like, shut up, man. I'm right here. I'm on the 3-point line. What is he going to do? So then all of a sudden, it's like, the shot clock's going down 5, 4. And that's when they used to count it down. So they're counting the 3-point down. He just jumps up, squares up, shoots the ball from that hash mark on the side, right by the score table, knocks it down. The crowd goes crazy. It's loud as hell in there, but I still hear Phil yelling, I told you to get up on him. You can hear Phil's voice over. So I go down to the other end, the shot, the horn blows, and I knew someone's coming in for me. It's Scotty. Scotty's coming in for me. I'm looking around like, oh man. So as I'm going out, he said, I told you what I tell you. If I hit that shot, you was going out. Now go sit your little young ass down. So I walk over to the bench and I'm mad because he's talking trash. He was a notorious trash talker. So I go sit down. He comes back in another play. He's sitting in the corner in front of our bench. And he said, hey, Rook, guess what? Don't feel bad. I do your boy Pip like this all the time. So yeah, that's my Larry Bird story. I'm glad I got a chance to play against McHale and Bird, but I would have loved to go against Kareem and play, been on the same court with them.
Yeah.
Dr. J, Moses Malone. I mean, it was just been great to go up against those Daryl Dawkins, those kind of guys.
You only missed Artis Gilmore by a couple of years.
Yeah. He was I think he was when I came in, he was with Boston, I think, and then that was probably the end of his,
he finished up in '88, and then he went
played
overseas for a couple of years.
I missed him. I mean, I would have loved. I was a big fan of the A Train. When he was with the Chicago Bulls, all you remembered was, he was a big dude. He was strong. He would just dunk on everybody. And he had that Coolidge afro from the White Shadow.
Yeah.
He had that huge afro, man. And he was fun to watch. And you know what, Mark? And to be honest, we talking in the interview about this, he does not get the credit he deserves. You never hear his name mentioned as one of the best big men. It's always overlooked. They're putting guys like Dikembe Mutombo and all, and I'm not, taking anything away from Dikembe Mutombo. But when you look at a guy who came in the ABA, and I can read a list of every player that played there, there's Hall of Famers. There's at least 15 Hall of Famers from the ABA that transitioned to the NBA that was in the ABA. And so he wasn't playing against a bunch of firemen, as JJ Redick say, a bunch of bakers, plumbers. He was playing against future Hall of Famers. He came in the same time as Dr. J did as a rookie. This guy came in 75. He was the ABA Rookie of the Year and the ABA MVP.
Yeah.
How else could you not? That alone right there puts you in a different thing. And I think the NBA was so mad at the ABA because all those good players were over there. I think they held a grudge against most players that came over. You're not going to be able to squelch the athletic ability of Dr. J. Dr. J he helped your league, because that league was down at that time. Guys like Dr. J, Dan Issel, George McGinnis, David Thompson, George Gervin. These guys are coming over. Maurice Lucas, who helped Portland win a championship. These guys are coming from the ABA. They infused talent and showmanship to the NBA. Changed the whole way the NBA was playing. The NBA was boring because Boston was winning everything. No one could compete with Boston because Boston could buy all the good players, and they were winning all the championships. Now you got an infusion of talent. And think about the ABA teams that came over into the NBA. They transitioned. You had Indiana, you had Denver, and you had the Spurs. Those three teams were ABA teams.
And the Nets were the fourth.
And the Nets. Yes. And now they're the Brooklyn Nets.
And I think Artis Gilmore still holds the record for the highest rebounding average in college at the NCAA level. He, in his 2 years at Jacksonville, I was looking this up, he averaged 22 rebounds a game. You don't see numbers like that in college anymore.
And I'm speaking of, he was talking about Steph Curry, and when I saw this quote the other day that comparing Steph Curry and Magic Johnson, and who's the best point guard, and I think Steph Curry humbly said he was the best point guard, and I had to really disagree with that. There's no comparison to Magic Johnson. You can't compare yourself to Magic Johnson. The numbers, he's got more MVPs, got more titles, more finals appearances, more assists. The 3-point line separates, Steph Curry from most anybody who played in the 90s and 80s. But, he's 6'9", changed the game, revolutionized the game. And when you watch this winning time, even though, again, it's been, sometimes it's a little bit overblown, but the impact that Magic had on the game, I go back to that 91 finals. You know, if Phil Jackson doesn't make a bold move and put Scottie Pippen on Magic Johnson, I don't know if they would have won. I don't think they would have won. I think the series would have went, you know, a little bit deeper. But that adjustment that we made, because Magic was killing us. Like, he was just too big. I mean, he's, you know, he could see the whole floor. The passes that he made were unbelievable. Just controlled the tempo of the game. So that's why I say you can't put, you know, if you're Steph Curry, you can't put yourself in that category as being like the best point guard. Are you one of the best point guards to play? Yeah, you are. But to say that you are the best when guys like Oscar Robinson are lurking around, come on now. No.
Yeah, and I saw something today on Twitter where somebody was mentioning the fact that, you know, even though Steph is technically the point guard, they don't really have a system where they run a point. You know, it's a motion kind of thing where they set screens, and, you know, Draymond Green is a facilitator and Steph and Klay are shooters. Yeah, by size, he's a point guard, but he doesn't do all the things that old school traditional point guards do.
And you know, he doesn't have to defend. You know, they always put him on the weakest guy. You always see him moving around. He's gotten much better, but you know, when you put him in the 90s era, okay, who's he going to guard? Who's he going to guard?
Right? Yeah, it'd be tough.
You know, I mean, it'd be tough for him to guard anybody. And you know, when they say compare that 72 win Bulls team against Golden State, and they go, oh yeah, Golden State would have won because Kevin Durant, blah blah blah. No, they wouldn't have. The Bulls would have won that series, because the Bulls would have won that series just based off of, first of all, Dennis Rodman would have frustrated the hell out of Draymond Green. Let's just get that. Let's just start right there. It'd take him completely out of the game.
That'd have been fun to watch.
Yeah, so that he would have taken him completely out of the game, you know. And then you got the size of Michael Jordan, Ron Harper, and then Scottie Pippen across the board. They can switch everything. They're going to go into the post against these smaller guards, even Klay Thompson. I mean, if Devin Booker can give you numbers, if you're Klay Thompson, what do you think a prime Michael Jordan's going to do?
Oh yeah, no question.
It's good discussion. It's good barbershop talk. What if, should have, could have, that. But let's be real. You know, you can't compare eras because it's impossible to play. But you know, some of these great players, man, don't discredit them, man. Don't discredit some of these great players, man, just because, you know, they're older and the game has changed at 3-point line, saying they're playing against plumbers and all this other crap. Don't discredit these guys.
Hey, before we get out of here, I want to give you my pick on what are we watching, and I'm going to save you a little bit of time. Netflix has a film starring Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman. She plays like a female James Bond type trying to save the world thing. There's some good action scenes in it, but the story is a little bit weak. You know, there's the heart refers to this computer system that controls the whole world, and she's trying to save mankind. You know, there's some reasons to watch, but it's not the greatest not the greatest movie in the world.
Hey, listen, you're not watching it for the theater part of it.
For the
baby.
plot.
You're watching, the plot. You don't even know what the plot is. You're just watching Wonder Woman running around.
Yeah.
I watched the movie.
It's all right.
I watched a movie the other day, man, with Jennifer Lawrence, and she was. It's a new movie. I gotta remember the name of it, but she was trying to help this young kid who's like he's a brainiac, and the parents wanted him to, you know, get a little edge to him, and so it was the worst movie I'd ever seen. It was. I was sitting there like the previews were better than the actual movie was, and you know when that happens, you already know the movie sucks. But I forgot the name of it. I'll come up with it the next show. But it was awful. It was the worst 2 hours or however long it was that I spent, you know, watching that. It's terrible.
See, we'll give you good stuff, but we'll also steer you away from stuff you won't waste your time on.
Exactly.
One thing you do want to take advantage of is our friends at Windy City Limousine. They provide championship service. Making a reservation is so easy, it's a slam dunk. Let Windy City break the full court pressure of traffic, get you to your destination in style and on time. Contact Windy City Limousine at 847-916-9300. You can ask for our good friend Mike.
Yes, Mike's getting some rest right now. He's resting his back. His back's been really tight, so he's getting some time off while I'm recovering from hip surgery. So shout out to my boy Mike Almiral, baby. He's got the double mint twins taking care of him over there, baby. They cooking and cleaning for Mike.
Well, we hope that, Stacey, you're sounding great, looking good, and hopefully you'll be back in studio real soon. Hopefully Whispers finds his way back from Fort Myers. He'll probably have some excuse of what happened next week, so we'll look forward to hearing that.
He'll be as red as a lobster.
Yeah, Larry the Lobster.
Larry the Lobster.
And a shout out to my son Eric and his fiance Mary, getting married on Saturday, Stacey. A big wedding in Milwaukee, so
congratulations!
Shout out to them.
Congratulations!
We'll have some photos of the big festivities.
Yes,
so
yes, we'll put it on the show. We'll put it on the show.
Want to thank Mark Grody for his Bears report, the A-Train, the Hall of Famer Artis Gilmore for joining us. Thank the great Sriracha crew, Dee and Cisco doing yeoman duty here. Spinning the dials, getting everything done. So we appreciate all their hard work. And a brand new show next week. We got a special guest. You want to tell the folks, Stacey, who's coming on next week? Is that
Mr. Excitement? Mr. Excitement. We got Nate Robinson coming on next week. And,
that's going to be fun.
Looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
All right, so make sure to join us for that. That's coming up next Thursday. As we told you last week, we're going to be shifting to Mondays starting September 11th. But for next week, the show, again, will be taped on Thursday. So for everybody here, we thank you so much. Stacey, got some advice for the folks on the way out?
Drive home safely, Chicago BB.
There you go. See you next week, everybody.